Hello everyone, welcome to the today's lecture where we are going to learn about dispersal of plant pathogens. Dispersal of plant pathogens. This is the second link in the infection chain, and there are two links in the infection chain of a plant pathogen. First one is survival and second one is dispersal. Survival of plant pathogens that was discussed in the last video, and today we are going to learn about dispersal of plant pathogens, and these two links are very closely bound with each other. Actually, the dormant structures, they will provide the means of dispersal in time. That is, pathogen is retained viable over a long period of time, enabling it to be transported through physical agencies like wind, water, soil, and seed without being damaged. That means the dormant structure maintains the pathogen integrity without damaging its ability to germinate. Coming to the dissemination, which is also known as dispersal or transmission of plant pathogens. Transport of these dormant spores or infectious bodies, which can act as a primary inoculum or secondary inoculum from one host to another host at various distances, that results in spread of the disease from one place to another place or one area to another area. This process, that is transport of spores or infectious bodies from one place to another place or one host to another host, is generally known as dispersal or dissemination or transmission of plant pathogens. So dispersal of plant pathogens or disease, it is very important not only for spread of the plant disease, but it is also required for continuity of the life cycle and evolution of that particular pathogen. So we should have some knowledge regarding these dispersal methods for effective management of the plant diseases, because if you know the dispersal methods, we can possibly we can prevent the dispersal and thereby breaking the infection chain what exists in the nature. So for management of plant diseases effectively, we should have very clear cut idea about the dispersal methods of these plant pathogens. So why dispersal is required? Not only for the spread of plant diseases, but it is required for continuity of the life cycle and evolution of that particular pathogen. That's why dissemination plays a very important role in pathogen life cycle. Coming to the various organs, how they will disseminate. In case of fungi, if you will take, fungi generally produce both asexual and sexual spores after a active vegetative growth, either within the host tissue or on the host tissue. They used to produce both asexual and sexual spores, and these spores, they dispersed mechanically in time and space by various means. In case of bacteria, bacterial diseases, they do not produce particular like asexual and sexual spores like fungi. So in bacteria, what they have to do, that bacterial cells come out on the host surface as ooze, or the host tissue may disintegrate so that bacterial mass can be exposed outside to the environment. Thereby it can be dispersed by various physical and biological agencies. Physical agencies like water, it can be dispersed, and biological agencies may be insects like that. So in case of viruses, in virus diseases, there is no resting spores like asexual and sexual spores. So viruses has to be transmitted by either insects or mites or phanerogamic parasites and nematodes and human beings. So fungi, bacteria and viruses, all these organisms, they can be transmitted or dispersed in a different ways. So coming to the modes of dispersal of plant pathogens, there are mainly two types of dispersal. That is, first one is autonomous, which is also known as direct dispersal or active dispersal, and second one is indirect or passive dispersal. So what is the difference between this autonomous dispersal and passive dispersal? In case of autonomous dispersal, which is also known as direct dispersal or active dispersal, here, dispersal of plant pathogens takes place through either soil, seed, and planting material during normal agronomic operations. So during cultivation practices, this dispersal is going to happen, and there is no major role of external agencies like insects, wind, water in this type of dispersal. Coming to the second dispersal, that is indirect or passive dispersal, this mainly happens through the animate and inanimate agents, that is either like through insects or inanimate agents means wind and water. So in today's lecture we will discuss about only the autonomous dispersal, which is also known as direct or active dispersal. In next coming video I will explain about the indirect or passive dispersal. So first one is autonomous dispersal. In autonomous dispersal, we already came to know that seed, soil and planting material can act as for carrier of this pathogenic pathogen. So let us see how the seed act as a source of autonomous dispersal. Because our most of the cultivated crops we can be raised generally raised from seed. So seed, if it is carrying the diseases and it can help in the transport of pathogens, it plays a very important role, because most of the crops we are cultivating from the seed. So if seed is carrying the disease or it is carrying the particular pathogen, it can be capable of causing huge losses to the cultivated crops. So much importance has to be given to the seed while it is carrying the infection. And dormant structures of the pathogen, if you take the seeds of Cuscuta, sclerotia of ergot fungus and smut sori, they generally used to found mixed with the seed lots, and they are dispersed as seed contaminants. That means they do not infect the seed, but they move through the seed as a contaminants. In case of bacterial cells or spores of some fungi, they present on the seed coat. That means they do not penetrate the seed, but they are transported to long distances through the seed. That means they are present on the seed coat. In some other cases, dormant mycelium, which can present in the seed, it can be transmitted to long distances. So based on this, we can divide the dispersal by the seed into three types, that is contamination of the seed, externally seed borne, that is present on the seed coat, and internally seed borne. Now let us see the examples for each category. First category is contamination of the seed. That means seed borne pathogens move in the seed lot as a separate contaminants. That means there will be no pathogenic relationship between the seed and the pathogen. Just they will move as a contaminants with the seed lot, and they will without being intimate contact. That means there will be no pathogenic relationship between the pathogen and the seed. And seeds of the pathogen or parasite and the host, they are mixed during the harvesting of the crop. And how this contamination will take place means during harvesting of the crop, already pathogen infected seed and healthy seed, they used to mix together, and they will move from one place to another place. In some cases, what will going to happen is identity of the seeds of two entities, that is host and pathogen. It is very difficult to identify, and it is very difficult to separate. Even we identify, but it is very difficult to separate as they are mixed together during the harvesting, and they are in the same size also. So seed and infected pathogen, that seed which is infected with the pathogen, both are looking in the same size. So it is very difficult to separate. If we will take some examples, like a smut of pearl millet, which is caused by Tolyposporium penicillariae, and ergot of rye caused by claviceps. Here, smut sori and ergots mix easily with the seed lots during the harvesting and threshing operations, and it is very difficult to separate. Here we can see in this picture, this is the smut infected pearl millet, where both are looking in the same size, and during harvesting and threshing they used to mix together, and it is very difficult to separate also. Here also we can see claviceps in infected sorry, they are mixed with the rye, that is ergot infected rye, where it is difficult to separate manually. Even with the machines also it is difficult to separate. Coming to the externally seed borne, we saw about the contamination of the seed. Now externally seed borne. Externally seed borne means there will be a close contact between the structure of the pathogen and the seed, where the pathogen gets lodged on the in the form of a dormant spores or bacteria on the seed coat. either during the growth of the crop, that is when the crop is in growth stage, or at the time of harvest and threshing. Here also there will be no pathogenic relationship between the seed and pathogen, but pathogen will be lodged onto the seed coat, that is externally seed borne. If we'll take the example for externally seed borne, we can see short smut of sorghum, bacterial blight of cotton, and loose smut of barley. In some cases, what will going to happen is externally seed-borne structures such as smut spores, they can persist for many years because they are having the inherent capacity for long survival. That means if the seed is having survival, means if seed is viable, until that stage this pathogen is also viable. If you case Tilletia caris, which causing stinking smut of wheat, this pathogen Tilletia can be viable even after 18 years. In case of Eustilago evine, which causes wart smut, this pathogen Eustilago can survive up to 13 years. After 13 years also, under favorable conditions, this pathogen can capable of germinating and producing the disease. Coming to the internally seed borne. In internally seed borne, there will be a perfect pathogenic relationship between the seed and the established pathogen. So it used to cause infection of the embryo. So that is embryonic. If the pathogen infecting the embryo, these are internally seed borne. What we generally considered it as a internally seed borne pathogens. Example: loose smut of wheat. In case of loose smut of wheat, the fungus survives as a dormant mycelium in the embryo. So these are three categories. One is contamination of seed and externally seed borne and internally seed borne. Now let us see the difference between seed infection and seed infestation. Seed infection means the seed is infected only when the pathogen has grown in the seed or on the seed for some time, and it should establish its relationship with the seed tissue. That means there will be a pathogenic relationship between the seed and the pathogen. Example: loose smut of wheat, where the fungus grows in the embryonic tissue and it becomes dormant as a mycelium when the seed enters the dormancy. Especially internally seed-borne pathogens we can consider as a seed infection. And second category, seed infestation. Seed infection means seed infestation. It means the fungus or a pathogen is present on the seed coat, or maybe it can move through the seed as a contaminants. Only, that means seed act as only a carrier for the pathogen. It helps in the transport of pathogen. So here the pathogen is present on the either on the seed coat, that is externally seed borne, or it can mix with the seed lot and carried as a seed contaminants. So these two categories comes under seed infestation, where there is no true to type of pathogenic relationship between the seed and the pathogen. Coming to the second agent, that is soil as a source of autonomous dispersal. Now we saw the seed as a source of autonomous dispersal, and second one is the soil as a source of autonomous dispersal. And soil-borne facultative saprophytes, that is, they can survive in the soil, or facultative parasites. Facultative saprophytes means they are originally pathogen, but they can capable of living the life as a saprophytes. Facultative parasites means they are originally saprophytes, but they can live capable of living as a pathogens when the host plant is available. So these both types they can survive in the soil. And this dispersal through the soil may be either movement of the pathogen in the soil from one place to another place, that is the pathogen used to grow in the soil, or either movement of the soil containing the pathogen from one place to another place. So here autonomous dispersal by the soil can be classified into two different categories. One is dispersal in the soil and dispersal by the soil. If the pathogen moving in the soil, that is known as dispersal in the soil, or movement of the soil which containing the pathogen through different agents, that is dispersal by the soil. So let us discuss in detail about this dispersal in the soil and dispersal by the soil. First one is dispersal in soil. There are three stages of dispersal in the soil. First one is contamination of soil. So contamination, how it takes place means by gradual spread of the pathogen from one infested area to new area. that is contamination of the soil. That means pathogen is moving the soil from one place to another place. Second one is growth and spread of the pathogen in the soil. So when pathogen reached to the soil, it used to grow and spread based on its ability to multiply and spread. Why we are mentioning about its ability to multiply and spread? Because the pathogen should have the capability to multiply in the soil, and it has to tolerate the soil environmental conditions, because it should have saprophytic survival ability. That is the most important factor determining its capability to survive in the soil. And this survival ability of that particular pathogen, this is governed by high growth rate. That means that pathogen should have a high growth rate in the soil, and rapid spore germination, better enzymatic activity, and capability to produce antibiotics, and it should have tolerance to antibiotics produced by other soil microorganisms. That is high competitive ability to survive in the soil. Then only that particular pathogen can capable of surviving in the soil. That is, it can grow and spread in the soil. On the basis of this competitive saprophytic ability, means how much competitive capability it is having, the pathogens in the soil can be divided into three types. First one is the specialized facultative parasites. That facultative parasite means originally they are saprophytic in nature, but when the host plant is available, they can capable of becoming as a pathogen. So they can pass their life in the soil in the absence of host plants. That means they can lead the saprophytic life cycle, but they depend more on residues of the host plant. That means they require the residues of the host plants. Whatever remnants are there in the soil, they depends on that residues. Example, if you will take specialized facultative parasites are Armillaria amelia and Ophiobolus graminis. And second category is unspecialized facultative parasites, means they are not specialized. That means okay, they can lead the saprophytic life cycle, but uh, they can become as a pathogen also. That means they can pass their entire life in the soil. Example, if we take Pythium and Phytophthora, these are unspecialized facultative parasites. And coming to the third category, soil-borne obligate parasites. Obligate parasites, the name itself indicating that they require the host plant. Example, Plasmodiphora brassicae and Syncytium endobioticum. They require the presence of active host. So based on competitive saprophytic ability, the pathogens can be in the soil can be divided into three categories. One is specialized facultative parasites, that is saprophytes, and another one unspecialized facultative parasites, and third one soil-borne obligative parasites. Coming to the third category, persistence of the pathogen in the soil. That means pathogen can persist in the soil. So how they will persist in the soil? It has to persist in the soil as a dormant structures. What are the different dormant structures produced in pathogens like oospores, which were produced in Pythium, Phytophthora and Sclerospora, that is downy mildew fungi, and chlamydospores, which were produced by Fusarium, and smut spores in case of Eustylazo, and Sclerotia produced in Rhizoctonia and Sclerotium. And second category, now we discussed about dispersal in the soil. Now we will discuss about dispersal by the soil. So how the dispersal by the soil it will takes place means, the pathogen is dispersed by the soil during normal cultural operations through the agricultural implements, irrigation water and workers feed. Means when we are taking the agricultural implements from one place to another place, or while doing the normal cultural operations, the pathogen containing soil that will attach to these agricultural implements, and it will move from one place to another place. And propagules of fungi and plant debris which containing the fungal and bacterial pathogens also spread throughout the field. This is the dispersal by the soil. And transfer of soil from one place to another along with the propagating material, that is the most important method of dispersal of pathogen. That is, propagating material means which can be used for sowing. They can carry the pathogens through the soil. That plays very important role. If we will take some examples like papaya seedlings, when we are going for sowing from nursery to transplanting, then especially the stem or foot rot of papaya, Pythium ephaniddermatum. It can be introduced from this nursery to main field, which used to cause damping off. And in case of fruit trees where grafting we used to follow, so particular pathogens also along with the soil, when we are doing from nursery to main field, these pathogens will move from nursery to main field through the seedlings where the soil used to attach with the roots. Through that, pathogen will transmit it from nursery to main field and it can cause diseases in the orchards. And third category is plant and the plant organs as a source of autonomous dispersal. First one is the seed as a source of autonomous dispersal, and second one is the soil as a source of autonomous dispersal, and third one is the plant and plant organs as a source of autonomous dispersal. Plant and plant parts other than seed, where vegetative propagation plays a very important role. In such conditions, raw field produce and plant debris which accumulates during the course of that cropping, that constitute the third method of autonomous dispersal. If we will take examples, late blight of potato caused by Phytophthora infestans that was introduced in North America and in Europe through the seed tubers that were obtained from the South America. That was the native source for this late blight of potato, but when seed tubers were transported to North America and Europe, that late blight of potato was introduced there. In case of another example, if we will take citrus canker that was introduced into California from Asia. So the climatic conditions under California favored the growth of citrus canker and it led to epidemic. So these were the different modes of direct dispersal or dissemination of plant pathogens. In the next video, I will explain about the indirect mode of dispersal of plant pathogens. Thank you for your keen interest in this video and remember to like and subscribe for more videos. If you like this video, please share with your friends. I wish you great success, health, prosperity and happiness. Thank you.